I'm honored that my colleague from across the bay, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, is with us. In Congress, we call her Madam Chair. She is the chair of a very important committee that does the funding for our humanitarian and even some military assistance, our cooperation globally in the world. She's called a cardinal. They call them cardinals in the Appropriations Committee if you are chair of one of these committees. So we have some Jewish cardinals. We have all kinds of cardinals there. But Barbara's role in to going on this trip, to being a key part of this trip, was very important to us because when we came home, we had to deliver a package. So let me just talk to you about that. There are many honors that are afforded members of Congress, certainly a speaker and Madam Cardinal, chair of an important committee. I don't know that any of them surpass the privilege we had to go to Ukraine to see the fight for democracy happening right before our very eyes, to witness the courage of the Ukrainian people fighting for democracy, not just for Ukraine, but staving off an assault on democracy globally. We saw and heard about the brutality of the Russian assault, and pretty soon we'll be to the 100th day since that brutal assault on the territorial integrity of Ukraine. This is important to our country. It's important to our president. He has made that very clear to us. And under his auspices, we were afforded the opportunity and all of the security to visit Ukraine. When we were there, we heard first and foremost from President Zelensky an expression of gratitude to the American people, to our president, to the Congress, for what America had already done or committed to do. We wanted to hear what he saw as the priority of needs that we could talk about. We have in our midst, our members know their weaponry, and they know about food and all of that. So let me just talk a little bit about that and then hear from Barbara and the Consul General, and then from each of you. There are 4 categories of discussion that we had there. Of course, security was the overarching, but in security, weaponry. And that was the request of the president, was that we would have these multilateral, the MLRSs, and that came back as one of our primary missions, right, Barbara? To visit the White House and talk about the need for the distance to counter the advantage the Russians had in terms of distance. And I'm so pleased that the president has met that request, as you know. The second, and our members know their weapons. You know, they again, the one person who was taking lead on weaponry, Jason Crow, said he was so convinced of the need and the knowledge that the president displayed about why and when and how and all the rest, that he said we should make T-shirts when we go to the White House to say MLRS. We didn't have to go that far, but nonetheless, President Zelensky's argument's very persuasive. Sanctions. Our chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Meeks, sanctions. The president gave me gave us each a 15-page report about what sanctions were working, which weren't, and their evaluation of them, but also renewed what he had already asked me weeks before about our having the Russia on the state sponsor of terrorism list. That is something that we, again, made an appeal to the White House for, and I do believe, well, I know that's one of your questions. We can go further into that, but that is a high priority for us. In fact, I have said, if Russia's not on that list, tear the list up, because nobody should be on there more than Russia at this time for the brutality that we saw and how they have, I don't know, how would you say, brutalize their own military to turn into such horrible rapists and all the rest. Humanitarian assistance. The president was very clear about humanitarian assistance. He said it falls into 3 categories. Our refugees outside the country, Germany, some of the Eastern European countries, refugees overseas, displaced persons within, and that's another, say, 7.5 million people, displaced people within Ukraine, and then people needing humanitarian assistance who are under assault, another like 10.5 million people. So the different categories of need and urgency in all of that. The next thing would be economic assistance, and that was that had to do with what the government needed to meet its needs for paying the army, paying teachers, which is a high priority, and meeting their needs, and that. Now, on the humanitarian, just to get back to that, it's really, food is a security issue, it's an economic issue, it's a humanitarian issue, but the blockading, the preventing of food to grain and sunflower oil and all the rest to be exported to the rest of the world makes it a food security issue in Africa and other places. So again, it's about not having the income of selling that. It's also about the important part of it not being available to feed people and to get food to people within Ukraine, and again, to have the economic advantage of that. So that Jim McGovern is Mr. Food Security in the Congress, and he understands these issues, and that provoked a need for other weapons in terms of harpoons and the rest of it, in terms of demining the port. And so again, the intense discussion about how we do our humanitarian assistance, how we do our economic assistance. We came back, and again, we'll answer questions, but just to get more quickly to all of you, before we went, we had a package of $13.6 billion, which was a huge package, $13.6 billion. That was just about being exhausted, especially when it came to weapons. There was just there were no more money. We put together a package when we came back under Barbara's leadership as an appropriator, Madam Chair, which was $40 billion, 3 times more than what we had done before. Again, weapons, humanitarian, economic. The sanctions, not necessarily an outlay of money, but nonetheless a priority in our policy. We passed it immediately. The president even said, as important as COVID is to us, since certain people on the other side of the aisle don't want to do COVID, let's just move, don't hold up the Ukraine aid, and we passed it immediately. We were ready. We ordered. As soon as he said that, we posted it and passed it the next day. You have to post it a day in advance. Unfortunately, there was a delay in the Senate because of whatever, and but now they have passed it, and that money is on its way, and very important. We're very proud of our president in terms of unifying everyone around this, including his role in helping to unify the West in terms of our, and not only the West, beyond that, NATO, as well as EU and the rest. NATO includes, then we have some of our G7 countries that include countries that are not necessarily in NATO. And just the unity of EU and NATO and G7 and the rest has been something quite remarkable, and we think that every country was responsible for that unity, but our president played a very important role in it. We can talk about oil and how the EU has told us that they think that their purchase of oil or any security products from Russia is funding the war in Ukraine. Diversification is necessary so that blackmail is not there. But again, we can talk further to all of those things. But really, I said when I came back, it was like watching Washington cross Delaware to see the bravery, the leadership of the president of Ukraine, remarkable, but also all of the people helping him, and every person in Ukraine being so much a part of the sacrifice necessary, the courage needed, and the idealism that goes with it, and the pride in their Ukrainian identity. So sad, contrasted with the brutality of the Russians there. So that's kind of where we are, and the president put out this statement yesterday very positively about what we are intending to do. We can't do any of it without the money, and Congresswoman Lee is the chair of one of the most significant committees that in funding it all. She also is a champion worldwide for diplomacy and finding peaceful means as solutions, as well as recognizing meeting the needs of people and how they are affected there. And, of course, we'll talk about here at home as well. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And let me first just thank you for your tremendous leadership. Once again, we're here in her home district, and I always talk about how she thinks globally, acts locally, and I've been with her on the global stage several times, and I truly know what a global leader she is. And I'll just mention the Munich Security Summit because I was a member of the delegation, and President Zelensky was there, and we did meet with the mayor of Kyiv, and we recognized then how NATO, the EU, the United States, we were all unified at this moment as it relates to the defense of the Ukrainian people and support for making sure that the war that was about to begin, that we stood on the right side of history by helping with the defense of the Ukrainian people. And so I just want to thank our speaker for that, and because we've been laser focused on what we need to do to respond. And a couple of things I just want to mention. One is I have been in Ukraine in 2019 for 3 or 4 days. And during that visit, it was clear to me that the Ukrainian people were proud of your democracy, would do anything in the world, and we had no idea that this war was looming, but we knew that if anything should happen, we would be on the side of the Ukrainian people, and Ukrainian people would always stand for democracy regardless. And now we see what has taken place. These crimes, and I say they're crimes against humanity that are taking place in Ukraine. The violence, the war, the killing, the destruction of a country is something that many of us, you especially, have come to not quite grapple with and understand. This is the worst violence that I have witnessed for many, many years, in a long time. And it is incumbent upon us to do everything we can do. So a couple of things. When we were in Poland, for example, and I just want to mention the humanitarian groups. You may know some of them that we met with, because one of my goals was to allow for me to get, and our members to be informed by what was taking place as we began to write this bill. And we met with many NGOs in the United Nations. And so some of the civil groups, and I just want to mention because you may know them, but they're doing phenomenal work. Zimna, Human Rights Center. We met with the Anti-Corruption Action Center. We met, of course, with State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, USAID Disaster Assistance Response Team. We met with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. And we met with the International Organization for Migration and others. But these groups, and let me just say, and I mentioned this to Madam Speaker, these groups, many of them have reimagined and refocused their work right now in terms of defense, because they said we need to have the security of what you can provide us before we can even do our humanitarian work. So they all were also very focused on security. But having said that, also we learned that human trafficking now is becoming even more of a problem. And so in the bill, we wrote in provisions where some of the funding must be used now to address human trafficking. We wrote into the bill, of course, the economic support of, I think Ukraine now needs about $5 billion a month to close the deficit. So we have put in a requirement that we would provide $1.5 billion of that $5 billion a month. And so we've made some progress overall, I think 23, 24 billion just on the humanitarian side, but I believe we must do more. Look forward to hearing from you. I'm really pleased to meet many of you who have come here. I want to hear more about your families, how you're doing, and just thank you all very much for your participation and for informing what we need to know, what we need to understand as we go back to Washington, D.C. and continue to fight on behalf of the Ukrainian people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Barbara. I just wanted to say that Barbara was very much a part of some of the other initiatives we had, the $13.6 billion originally, banning the import of Russian oil, the reviving the Lend-Lease to send supplies to Ukraine as quickly as possible, seize and freeze, that's one of my favorites, seize the assets, freeze them, and when they thought to use them to build back Ukraine, not to give back to the Russians, but to use it. Multiple bills to isolate and devastate the economy, those would be the sanctions, and launching the administration's Uniting for Ukraine initiative to help those fleeing the war to come to America. And this week, President Biden announced he'll provide more advanced weapons. Of course, we consider that just an absolute necessity. So the list goes on. Consul General, thank you so much for your leadership in this, and as I say, for honoring us with your presence and inspiring us with your words last night on the Twin Peaks, and as we illuminated the Pink Triangle. Thank you so much for bringing together this wonderful group. We look forward to hearing from Christian and Irina, from Sebastian. Is your son here? No. How old is Sebastian? Oh, well, we care about him very much. Elena and Marina, thank you for being here. And, well, we'll be hearing from all of you. With that, I want to, with great gratitude and respect, yield to the distinguished Consul General.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And it's an honor for us, for the Ukrainian community here, to meet you, and thank you for finding the time, and thank you for Representative Barbara Lee to meeting with us. And I heard yesterday at that meeting that today's June 2nd, it's actually in 1987, it was the first day when you were elected in Congress. And so it's really 35 years of serving this country, serving your people. So I guess that our Ukrainian community who lives here in San Francisco and Bay Area are very happy to have you as their representative. Yeah, and as a full-scale invasion that Putin started against Ukraine and thought that it would just take a couple of days, it already lasts almost 4 months. And Ukrainian people, of course, heroically resist the enemy, which is several times larger, more powerful. And at the beginning of this war, we just thought about how to survive. But now we are thinking about how to win this war. And that's thanks to our friends and partners, and of course, thanks to the United States. And thanks to you personally. And we're not exaggerating when we are saying that. And all the people in Ukraine know how strongly you pushed for Lend-Lease Act to be passed, because there was a lot of expectations about that. And we also would like to thank you for leading the process of the Congress together with Ms. Barley and of this $40 billion legislative package of aid to Ukraine. We are grateful that in the House it was passed really quickly, and in the Senate it just took a little longer. And we're glad that these bills already started working. And it was announced yesterday that Ukraine will finally get these MLRS HIMARS multi-rocket launch systems, because there was a lot of expectation in Ukrainian society that this would really help Ukrainians fight against Russian aggression and will help to defend our country. And we hope that more weapons will be coming, and that's what that package is for. It would allow the money to be used for weapons which Ukraine needs, that including the air defense system, long-range air defense system, and attack drones that would really be able to change the situation in the war. And this would not be possible without your leadership, together with President Biden, of course. We know also how much you've done for how to make possible that the President Zelensky address the Congress through a video address. and also to include a video that would show the devastations caused by Russian troops, which we believe helped touch the hearts and minds of people, because it's not so personally when you have not seen it with your own eyes. And you did, Madam Speaker, when you visited Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first to lead the Congressional delegation to Ukraine, and that last month when you met President Zelensky, and it has become probably even more personal to you. So it's also required a lot of courage to go to place where the war is happening. So people in Ukraine really appreciate that. And as the war goes on, and Putin is not going to stop, unfortunately, so we Ukrainians hope that U.S. will continue the support and increase this support, and the Congress will play a key role in that. And we mean the financial help, which will be spent not only for weapons, which is of course the priority right now, but also to help Ukrainian people who lost their homes, had to move to other parts in Ukraine with almost nothing with them. And these families need support from the government, from Ukrainian government, which uses almost all the money to the war, to pay our soldiers who also have families who have been left. And it exhausts our economy, and that's probably what Russia is counting on, that will not be able to stand for a long time. And that's why it gets billions of dollars, of course, and Russia is getting billions of dollars from selling oil and gas to many countries, including the European ones. And we're grateful for the sanctions already imposed by the United States, but we really need even stronger sanctions and broader sanctions, which should include all major Russian banks, and not allowing Russia to avoid these sanctions. We also know that the request has been passed from the Ukrainian parliament to the Congress about recognizing Russia as state sponsor of terrorism, and we hope for your support in that. And after the war will be over, and even already now, the process of rebuild in the areas liberated from Russian occupation in Ukraine is happening, is necessary. And we believe that not only the probably support from the federal government could help, but on the local states level as well. We all know that the state of California has a great surplus in budget. I know probably is a question to the governor, but but still we think that maybe at least a smaller part of that can be used to help rebuilding process in Ukraine with the help of California Bay Area businesses, which would actually benefit both the businesses here locally and of course people in Ukraine, and we would be grateful for your support in this as well. And also, the people of Ukraine, as you actually mentioned already, are expecting that U.S. administration will have its decision on the seizing the assets of Russians here in the United States, and to give them to Ukraine, to give them to people of Ukraine, because it will be absolutely justified thing to do, who suffered from this unprovoked aggression. And also, just want to mention the problem of Ukrainian refugees who came here to California, to Bay Area, that these people are grateful that they managed to come through humanitarian paroles, but what they really need right now, at least we're talking about the adults, is the possibility for them to work, because people of Ukraine, they don't want to be refugees who receive only the benefits from the government. They want to work, and they want to pay for themselves, just not to create a burden on United States taxpayers. And if there's any possibility of how to speed up the process for them to get the approval for work faster, not to wait half a year or more, that would really help them. That would really help many families right now. And again, they will not use the U.S. money, but they will be just self-sufficient. That's the case. And I will just conclude and say that, as the President Zelensky said, this war has shown who the real friends are. And I thank you again, Madam Speaker, for you being a really true friend of Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Consul General. Just to address a couple of things you said, and then here, what is the challenge in terms of the state-sponsored list is that the administration wants to do it legally, and the standard or the criteria for that is that the country has caused global terrorism beyond its own borders. And well, we think that that's self-evident ever since the attack on so they're trying to I said, we'll rewrite the law, okay? Right? You don't like the law, we'll rewrite the law. And so we're just working out that language. But I don't really see any resistance except at the legal aspect of it. I don't see that as an excuse. I think it's a real reason, and that can be corrected. So we will do that. One thing that is a little bit sad is when, and Barbara knows more about this, I'm going to yield to her. When we were doing the bill, we had some resistance from some other people who would not allow us to give the same legal privileges to Ukrainians as we had given to Afghanis in terms of driver's license, things like that. At one point, we're like, it's holding up the whole bill. We just have to move the bill. But we do have to correct that. Barbara, did you want to speak to that in any way?
Well, we have to correct that, but also I think we have to correct a lot of the bottlenecks. Because we have, of course, historically had issues at the border, the southern border, and a lot of, the injustices that take place, unfortunately, now are being risen to the surface, and this is one. And so we have to continue to do that, and we're working with the Homeland Security Subcommittee to address it. But it's a larger issue that we have to resolve because of all of the historical kind of injustices, I say, that we have had at the border.
Yeah, and that is so. And of course, all of the trauma that has affected people from being displaced and by violence and the rest, and what they have seen, and children have seen, but also the fact that there shouldn't be any discussion as to whether the Ukrainian refugees would have the same privilege as the Afghani. I mean, that's just even recent, so it's not as if they would say it's something old. So now we have more than half of the meeting left to hear from all of you.
Yeah. So, if you please, we continue with the issue you introducing yourself, and we start with just as the order of seating, and we start with the refugee family.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maria Hilashova. I was born and raised in Ukraine. Graduated this year from high school with gold medal for academic achievements and was planning to enter the university. I was an active social activities activist, trying to transform Ukraine into the best country. My mom is a professional psychologist and my father is very successful in construction business. Together with my mom, they did their best to give me a happy life. My mother and I were forced to flee the country when the Russian invasion started. Trying to be closer to home, we stayed in many places for 2 months without proper living conditions and opportunities to find work, jobs. At that point, my grandfather suggested we to come to the USA. We know that this country is a land of opportunities, where everyone who eager to work hard can make any dream come true. My grandfather and his friends and people we didn't even know try to help us in every way they have a possibility so that we have bread on our table and roof over our heads. But we understand that we need to contribute, and we are ready and willing to do that. We are told that we will have a chance to study and work once all the formalities are finalized. My friends in other countries were able to start integrating into the workforce and educational lives, which only inspires us to be useful and to become productive in the United States, which has become a safe haven for us. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. I'm going to have them pass the microphone around since we only have one microphone. Yes. I can use my Mother of Five voice so that we can get on to the Oh, you don't want to use the Mother of Five voice. One of our colleagues from the Bay Area, a leader in the Congress, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, who's the leader in the immigration issues, she has been pressing the Department of Homeland Security to process cases faster. In the recent omnibus, we put, Barbara's leadership, $275 million in additional funding for U.S. citizen and immigration services to help with the backlog. The backlogs in immigration have been there for a while, including employment authorization across the board. But thank you for your entrepreneurial spirit, your courage to be here, and the rest. Our experience has been that many of the people who are here want to go home. And I don't know how you see that, but since you're here, we want you to be part of the constant reinvigoration of America, of hope, optimism, and courage. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Alina. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask you one quick question in terms of, in addition to the work aspect of being here and wanting to provide for your family legitimately through our system, what type of support do you need in terms of any kind of mental health system support? Are you getting what you need from our organizations and our country to help you just make this transition from all the trauma that you've experienced?
Now we demand on our relatives and the friend of my grandfather, so we need real help in some mental health, and as the council said that we really want to work and be self-independent here and to pay our own money, so I think that we need some medical insurance, and I think that can support our status here to get on our feet by ourselves.
Hi, my name is Oleg Roginsky. I'm the CEO and founder of People AI, and I've been blessed to have gone to university here 20 years ago and have started 2 companies, last one of them here in California, so I appreciate having a chance to live the American dream. Early in the war, me being here, Consul General calls me and asks a very interesting question: do you know Elon Musk? I said I could get to him, and so long story short, we raised about $25 million from entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley to purchase 12,000 Starlinks, which now are powering the backbone of all of the communications, including military and civilian. So the town of Bucha, where you might have gone, they have them installed in Central Square. The long-range weapons that US is providing, to shoot far, you need someone on the front line to communicate back to you where to shoot. So that is what is powering US technology from Starlink, is powering kind of targeting and communications between kind of frontline and people who are in the back with the modern American weapons. So that has been a lot of help, and a lot of technology and public has here in Silicon Valley stepped up to that. So wanted to express appreciation there. And also, since you mentioned the displaced kids who are all over Europe right now, one Silicon Valley company called Zoom, through a number of introductions, has provided unlimited video calling to all of the Ukrainian education system, which has been instrumental in driving over 2 million kids going to school, no matter where they are. So that has been really incredible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maxim Prasalov. I'm serial entrepreneur, Ukrainian activist and volunteer of one of the biggest Ukrainian NGO, Come Back Alive, and we help a lot to Ukrainian vets and their families, mostly, and we successfully raised in like over $120 million for the help to Ukraine in Ukraine, and it's Ukrainian based. So the Come Back Alive working from 2014. And it's one of the oldest NGO on this space. And we supply a lot of technologies. And the aim of the organization not only to help Ukrainian vets to buy in something, but to develop something and to integrate the technology here and transfer them to Ukraine, like drones technologies, machine learning, etc. So we have a lot of very interesting and innovative minds in Ukraine, and Ukrainian refugees, you know, they're running not from the poverty, they're running from the bombs. And we have a very strong intellectual potential, and you're absolutely right. Most of us want to back to Ukraine and want to help our country because this is like huge human capital, and we want to help to reintegrate our people there. And that is very interesting question because that's how the house can help us. I'm talking not about the legislation. This is like many aspects, economic and legislation, and the aim, aggressor should pay for that. And aggressor should pay not only to the state of Ukraine. Aggressor should pay to every citizen of Ukraine. And we support territorial defense as well. And the territory of defense is not only the battlefield. It's in the court as well. And we hope to help the army of Ukrainian lawyers in cooperation with the House of Representatives to help and to fight for Russian assets all over the world, including the United States. And we're happy to get help from your side. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Igor Weiner. I'm a founder and board chairman of Solve Corporation. It's a US-based company with offices around the world. We have 700 people globally, and approximately 150 of them based in Ukraine. We as a company doing a lot of investment in Ukraine, and one of the initiatives that we took was the opening up a playground in the city of Chernovtsi on the western side of Ukraine. And in the same time, together with Vlad Skos, we are participating in the uahouse.org. It's a fundraising institution to support Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people.
Okay, Madam Speaker, Madam Representative, it's a great honor to be here with you today. My name is Mariana Buneki, and I'm founder of AV Ventures. I work primarily with Ukrainian entrepreneurs, early stage in AI and deep tech. While it's super important to support military and to support humanitarian aid, I personally worked with many refugee families in Europe, helping them finding housing, helping them finding schooling. There is somehow one area that is not so much getting attention. It's economic part of this. So many companies who are that are employing Ukrainian tech talent are now facing big trouble. So jobs are also about dignity. Many people who went to Europe, they don't want to get just, little 200, 300 euros per month. They want to have their jobs. They want to apply their skills. So the trouble happens when startups have difficulties paying that. So I was wondering if there is maybe a role for US government to step in and to help, restart this tech ecosystem. Thank you. So that the US steps in and restarts the tech ecosystem in Ukraine, or helps Ukrainian founders that are here because they had to leave.
I'll come back to that. I wouldn't hear from all of
Yes.
mention that investment in Ukraine earlier, but I will address that when we get to that. Thank you very much, Mariana.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, Representative Lee, Consul General. I've never been in a room with so many Igors, not in a very long time anyway. It is such an honor. I was born in Kiev, and being Jewish, my family left the country when it was still part of the Soviet Union so that I could have a better future. Since then, I have been able to see what over 30 years of democracy can do, the good things that it can do to a country and for a people. I've never been more proud of my fellow Ukrainian countrymen and countrywomen, and I've never been more in touch with them than I am right now. You see, for me, being part of the small d democratic process has been shaped by that lived experience. That's what inspired me to go into public service in our local Bay Area community. The immigration laws that were still on the books at that time were what was able to help my family immigrate here. I was aghast and upset and angry in all the words during the 4 years of Trump, because the very same things that allowed my family to have a better future were tried to be rendered inapplicable to anyone else. And that's why right now, and that's how I've gotten to meet folks like Oksana here. We've been working just through our networks to try to find housing, shelter, and good jobs for the refugees that are here, much like our family at one time was able to use a refugee status designation to come here. I agree with others can speak more to the specific ways that such opportunities can be streamlined, but I know that it has been a bit of a patchwork from my experience trying to work through different offices to get them resources. There's one thing that I would like to just add. A year ago, I went to work for the California Solar and Storage Association. We are California's largest renewable energy trade association. Tesla is one of our members. And we have over 700 members, all in rooftop scale solar and storage. Right now, Putin's war is funded by nearly $1 billion every day in fossil fuel imports. Never has it been as important to me, and never has my life and career come full circle to this extent than realizing that here in California and here in the US, we have an opportunity to divest from the scourge of fossil fuels and instead invest in a renewable, democratic energy supply, such as rooftop solar and storage. And I applaud all of you for the work that you have already done, for your leadership, not just nationally, but also on the world scale. And I think your leadership is what has gotten other world leaders, including in the EU, to follow suit. I believe that more needs to be done. And as you know, there are bills right now, there are companion bills in Congress and the US Senate, in the House, around funding the ability for the president to invoke the Defense Production Act around this issue. Thank you so very much for your leadership.
Hello, my name is Irina, or Irina. I was born and raised in Odessa, Ukraine. Unfortunately, I don't have prepared, speech, so I can jump from topic, but my story is very tragic. First of all, I lost two parents, both of my parents. Sorry. first started from my mom, who was sick with cancer. And just 4 days before the war started, I lost her. Sorry. On 24th of February, you know, when the war started, it was a very important day in my life because it was her funeral. So when we woke up at 5 in the morning with our 4-year-old child, yes, he was scared, you know, because this bombing was everywhere and we didn't know where exactly. It was so close to our home. We were questioned, should we go to a funeral or we should take a luggage and run away, you know, right away. But I felt that that was my goal, no matter what. When I risk my life, I should, you know, say goodbye to my mom. So the 24th of February is the day that I will never forget, because it's personal. A month ago, I lost my dad. He was in the hospital fighting with mental health. And the last drop for him was, you know, the beginning of this war. Because he couldn't leave the hospital. They also, as you know, sick people, they didn't know what to do. All they could do is just to be, you know, somewhere underground of the building in the hospital. So this war is awful. I know that many people lost their, you know, children, or children lost their parents. We will never forget this for sure. We will never forgive this for sure. I'm very grateful to be here, as my husband is an American, but come here, it was also a difficult journey for us. We started on the first day of war after funeral of my mom. It took 24 hours to get to Romania and 4 cars. But even being in Romania, you know, I didn't feel safe. I know it's a safe country, yes, it's a European country, but I didn't feel safe. So in the week we moved to Belgium, to our friends who were happy to have us. They gave us everything we needed at the time, you know. And first it was, of course, peace, you know, and food. And then it took also us time to come here because no one was prepared for this war, you know. And we spent a lot of money on my mom's funeral. So when we came, you know, to, Belgium, we were almost like zero, you know, money in our pocket. So a lot of people here, including my husband's family and friends, everyone, you know, pitch in for us to get tickets to get to the United States. So here we are right now, here, safe, and I'm blessed, you know, to be here. It's my first time, you know, being in a place like this. Problems that we faced, or me personally, as, you know, refugee from Ukraine. Yes, I don't have opportunity to work right now. We started working on my green card papers. But being in, you know, the place and the organization which try to help us, and hearing that I can get stuck here for a year or two, you know, when I get the green card, yes, and maybe not have opportunity to go back, you know, to Ukraine, I felt sad, because I want to have freedom, you know, not, you know, in the country, but in my personal life. Also, we faced problem not having a, you know, opportunity to put our child in a kindergarten. It's a long process, a lot of documents, you know, papers to fill in. So that would be, you know, nice if you can help refugees here to get, you know, life as we had before February 24th. As my company in Ukraine, just a few more seconds if you don't mind. Yes, in Ukraine, right now I have a brother. Thank God he is not taking part in this war, but his job is like, he has like half of his job and half of his income. And if I could work here, I would definitely, you know, send money for him because, you know, it's my blooded brother. Also, this morning I talked to him and I told him, like, if you had opportunity to talk to someone like you, what would you tell this person? And he said, as all Ukrainians, please help us with weapons. Please help Ukraine with medical care, because a lot of people right now are also struggling from mental health and, something like my mom, cancer, They maybe even don't have pills or opportunities to get medicine. And the last one probably is food, especially in places which are occupied right now or in small villages, because prices jumped in Ukraine and not everyone can, get, bread or something else. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And the last part that I wanted to say, I'm really glad that I voted for my president. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Ukraine. And if you help us, there will be Ukraine on this earth. Thank you.
For me? Wait.
Hi, my name is Nick Bilogorsky. I'm from Kharkiv. I'm very grateful to Sir Consul General for the invitation, the opportunity to be in this room. I'm honored to meet you again, Madam Speaker. We met last time in 2015 at the United Nations event here in San Francisco. At that time, our charity organization, Nova Ukraine, was just getting started, but by now we've existed for 8 years and raised more than 35 million for humanitarian aid and support of refugees. I just came back actually with Oleg from World Economic Forum in Davos, and I saw Foreign Minister Kuleba there, and I wanted to pass on the one message I got from his speech, which is Ukraine needs multiple launch rocket systems, MLRS, ASAP, and I'm glad to see that that has come into fruition, and I thank you very much for the support on that. But my question today is about European security structure. The war in Ukraine is causing profound changes to European security. Finland and Sweden are trying to join NATO. They're seeking NATO membership, and NATO countries are increasing military spending, and some call for new military unions. So what do you think the role is that the United States will play in the new European security arrangements?
Hello, my name is Oksana Cherepenko-Dorico. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Barbalee, for not just having us here today, but taking these initiatives that are helping the people of Ukraine. It's exceedingly important, and it is. I'm very proud of my country here in America, and I'm very proud of my country, Ukraine. I'm a Ukrainian American born here in the Bay Area to parents who are political immigrants here to the Bay Area. And the Ukrainian American Coordinating Council has been around for quite some time, from the 60s. In 2014, our focus was more on humanitarian aid. But now our main items that we're focusing on are the territorial defense and supporting territorial defense. And we've, I think, exported over 200,000 pounds of military ballistic gear, level 4 helmets, level 3 vests. We recently got a BIS license for reconnaissance drones and thermal imagers, which are very important in territorial defense. We still need lots of help there, so we're hoping to see what can be done. And we're also working on a refugee program called the Refugee SOS, which is a qualitative program here in the Bay Area, but has 2 large legal firms across the United States that's helping with pro bono legal care, mental health care, food vouchers. We're helping not only humanitarian parolees, but people who have come on tourist visas and sponsorship families as well, because they need assistance. And it was good to hear that, I call it clearing some of the debris from the pathway. But all of these people who have come over, there are certain issues that are coming up. So, for instance, on sponsorship families, you're supposed to be able to get a work visa within 3 months. But in some cases, depending county by county or state by state, they're being told 10 to 12 months wait. And again, people want to work and they want to become, viable citizens here in the United States. We're also finding that healthcare is a major issue for our parolees and even people for a tourist visa. I have a family that came. They're trying to get back to Ukraine because they're doctors, and so they want to get back to Kiev. But they have a son with a very serious iron deficiency, and so we're having issues getting medical care for those who are stuck here while the war goes on before they can go home. So I was very happy to hear that there's a process or a thought process of how we can clear that debris and help them out. And if we can do that, I think that we can also figure out who needs to stay, who wants to go home, and figure out how to get a clear path for both those sets of people. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. My name is Vlad Skats. I grew up in western part of Ukraine in simple family. It's farmer in big family with 10 boys. I'm number 7. 22 years ago, I immigrated to California, and I get in love with this land, and I was able to build a successful business. Here in USA, we have 1,000 plus workers, also office in Mexico, Warsaw, Poland, and Ukraine. And but when war started, our life changed here. 90% of my time I dedicate to Ukraine American house. In Ukraine, my parents, my 5 brothers in Ukraine, one of them citizen of United States, he refused to relocate. So he was 20 miles from the Bucha when all this crime was happening there. So I'm proud of them. And when war started, I talked to many journalists here, and they asked, how come you came to California and most of Ukrainian people coming to California? And I said, it's just beautiful. So I want to say thank you very much for beautiful state that we have. And on behalf of many Californians, your voters, I want to say thank you. We will be forever grateful for your support, and special thank you for your visit to Ukraine. We will remember this and we will greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My name is Natalia Agnon. In my volunteering role, I'm the co-founder of a non-profit called Hromada, which means community in Ukrainian. We publish the first Ukrainian newspaper on the West Coast. And now our organization also has a very significant humanitarian aid fundraising component. We send mini grants, $3, $5, $10,000 to charities, volunteers in Ukraine who use that money mostly for women and children, refugees as well. In my professional life, I'm the founder and CEO of a global IT company, Svetla Systems, and we have 600 developers in Ukraine. A third of them already left Ukraine, unfortunately. Pretty much all of them have been displaced. I just want to raise a couple of topics today, if I may. One of them is weapons, because I spoke to a Ukrainian parliamentarian this morning, and this is the request from them. The war is not won. It's very heavy fighting right now. And what they need desperately are those MLRS, and not just short range. They only got 4 yesterday. What can we possibly do? Who do we need to plead with? How do we lobby that they get them faster? They also need planes. They need Ripper, apparently that's the name, RIPR, type of weapons. But so I just wanted to say that that's so important. The other question that I want to raise is the recognition of this war as genocide against the Ukrainian people. There's this paper that just came out by the New Line Institute basically saying that the legal threshold of the risk of serious risk of genocide being committed in Ukraine has been met. And the states who are members of the Genocide Convention have legal responsibility to prevent it. This is over the 3 expert groups who have contributed to this study. Those were professors who are well-versed in the topic of genocide. Those are open source investigators and the linguists who took the first time translation. And I think this is the 7 countries already recognize it. Now it's for the US. What do we Ukrainian American diaspora organization do to push that issue? It's very important to pass it for and recognize it as a genocide. So I would like you to comment on that as possible. And again, I just want to thank you, and pleasure to be here as part of this community. Thanks.
My name is Igor Markov. I was born and raised in Kiev, and I've been in the U.S. for almost 30 years. For about 15 years, I was a professor of computer engineering at the University of Michigan. More recently, I work in tech, Google, now Meta, but in my volunteering role, I've been a director at Nova Ukraine, which is a California nonprofit that is helping Ukraine with humanitarian aid. And of course, since the beginning of the war, that took priority over all of my other activities. We support over 4,000 volunteers in Ukraine. Many of them deliver food and medicine, and we hear a lot of stories from them. For example, one of our volunteer organizations that we support, they evacuated people from Mariupol. Even for many weeks when Mariupol was surrounded, they found dirt roads around Russian checkpoints, and they managed to bring some people out. But some of their vans were shelled, and some of the vans were destroyed, and their drivers were wounded. So we funded replacement vans for them. We provided medications for orphanages that help special children. We run a team in Bucha that is cleaning up the debris and restoring destroyed buildings. And of course, these stories go on, and we have over 30 organizations in Kharkiv city alone that we support that deliver food. But in addition to these stories, we also hear how they follow the developments in the U.S. They appreciate the support, they understand the significance of the support from the U.S., and they follow the votes in Congress, in the Senate. And I wanted to express the gratitude from all the people that we talked to the leadership, to Madam Speaker personally, for the care and the attention and the very detailed consideration that you're given to challenges in Ukraine, and we hope that this continues, of course. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your deep knowledge, your just beautiful idealism and values about all of this, and your practical approach to some things that we can get done. A couple things that I'll address as we wrap up is, first of all, in terms of what you mentioned, Mr. Consul General, but I didn't address, and others have mentioned, in terms of investment in Ukraine, helping to build the economy of Ukraine. Again, I have ongoing conversation with the Speaker of the Parliament, I'll talk to the President early this week again, and the others. Of course, I'm very close to Ambassador Makarova. I may see her even tomorrow. I'm not sure my plane gets in time. But the issue of investment in Ukraine, I've visited in 2015, and one of the purposes of our visit was to increase investment in Ukraine. We met with many of the multilateral corporations and other businesses who wanted to invest in Ukraine. But I'll be very honest with you, corruption was a major obstacle in all of that. As you know, one of the platforms of the President Zelensky was ending corruption. And that is a very big difference in terms of drawing money to Ukraine and investment. And I think that, sadly, this war, horrible as it is, it has provided that opportunity. When we were there in 2015, the then mayor of Kiev, who is still, Valerie, he's still the mayor of Kiev, he told us this is the most corrupt person in the world. Now, there's stiff competition for that honor, but at that time, that's what he said. So really, that obstacle is something that has to be changed, because they don't know if the investment is even going to be respected and whatever. So you understand that, but the fact is that it is very important for us to encourage investment in Ukraine if we're going to address the categories that the President talked to us about, the economy and the humanitarian aspects of the country and how it goes forward. In terms of the structure of the European defense system that you all talked about, when we were in Munich, this would be the end of February, about the 24th, I think, President Zelensky came and spoke. And he challenged the defense structure of EU, of NATO, of the UN. It was a very challenging speech, and he only came out, made the speech, and went back home. It was very courageous of him to even come there. We were shocked, we're happily surprised that we'd have a chance to see him, but sadly, the purpose of the trip. And so there really is a challenge to, but the unity that that NATO has shown toward Ukraine is something, as I said, I think our president played a role in, but not to undermine or minimize the role that other governments in Europe have played. It's important because it's about democracy. It's important because it's about them. Where does Putin decide he's going next? Maybe not into a NATO country, but a nearby country. And then what's next after that? They all know. And we've had some conversations when we were in Poland with the president of Poland about the security of Poland, and Poland's just being so great in terms of refugees and the rest. And they have a concern about their own security with Putin just a step over the border. Macron talked about a European unity thing, whatever, and okay, all that is for discussion. But the fact is that we have to remove all doubt. The United States is wedded to Article 5 of the UN of the NATO Charter, and that was not really, shall we say, expected because of what went before coming out of the White House in terms of NATO. But Putin may have wanted to weaken NATO. In fact, he has strengthened it. He has unified it more because it's in their vested interest to be helping Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting for democracy there and writ large. So I think that we've made progress even since Munich and the end of November, right after the president spoke a couple of days later. The president of Ukraine spoke a couple of days later. The initiation of hostilities began by Putin. The genocide issue, well, what we're trying to say there is everybody has to document everything because these people have to be held accountable in a court of justice for what they have done. But in order to prosecute successfully, we have to have time, date, what they said, all of it very clearly. And there are groups that are working very hard to do this in Ukraine. In terms of we, as moms and grandmoms, to see what they were doing to children, raping 11-year-old girls repeatedly in front of their parents and grandparents, killing parents and taking the children to Russia. Some of them so little they don't even know their name and address. In terms of plowing their own way back. So this is the crimes against humanity are very, very clear. In my view, it is genocide, but whatever it is, it has to be answered for in an international court of law. It's sad that because of misinformation and whatever, that the Russian people are still associating themselves with this act of total brutality. What we were told when we were there, Consul General, was that when Ukrainians would call their relatives in Russian saying, we're in a bunker, the Russians are bombing us, and this or that, they'd say, they aren't. They aren't. You're making it up. Putin is doing the right thing. How sad is that? Because we like to separate the people from the brutality of Putin, but for lack of information, for whatever it is, many people in Russia are still supporting that. They're doing a crowdfunding thing or something to help send support to the soldiers and the rest of that, the soldiers who are raping little girls in Ukraine. So it'd be impossible. When I was there in 2015, I met a lot of the grassroots people who had participated in the democracy movement there, and many of them came to see us now, and they brought a flag with all these things written on it, thank you for this, that, and the other thing, I think, I mean, who knows? It's written in Ukraine. I think they were very complimentary. They had hearts with them and the rest. And I had when we had the Prime Minister come, I had our interpreter translate what was on the flag. So I brought it to Ukraine, and I asked President Zelensky to sign it. And he signed it, and he ended his signing it for the children. For the children. Remember when he signed it, Barbara? For the children. And of course, that's what this is all about. So yes, we want a strong. We would like to see. So you asked specifically about Sweden and Finland. They came about a week and a half ago to the Congress. They met with the president, and then they came and met with us, a bipartisan group of leadership with the president. Remember, the president of Finland and the prime minister of Sweden, expressing their commitment to joining NATO. This is a very big deal. This is a very big change. You see with Turkey, they seem to think that was not insurmountable. 800-mile border, Finland, with So I just want to tell you, I had on this bracelet, which was made in Africa for Ukraine. And when I had it on that day, the Swedish Prime Minister thought it was about Sweden. Barbara thinks it's about the Golden State Warriors, but I think it's about Ukraine. Barbara and I both think it's about Ukraine. So again, yes, we must invest the different attitude toward corruption. And by the way, it's rampant in the world. It's not unique in any way to Ukraine. But now Ukraine has taken steps away from that, and we again have to strengthen all of our military structures. But we are messengers of diplomacy and peace, and we don't want to just be reverting to war, but nonetheless, in order to be good messengers of peace, we have to have the leverage of strength to do that. So those are some of the questions that arose. Of course, we want to meet the needs that we talked about here, and that's indicative of a weakness in our own system about immigration and the rest that we've had. But hopefully this will be a way for people to be more attracted to making that change. Barbara?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say how profound this session has been, and I thank you very much for your insights and your resilience and your determination. And a couple of things I just want to add to what the speaker said. One is in terms of just the accountability issues in this last, in terms of corruption. In the last bill that we passed, the $40+ billion bill, we for the first time added additional language to the bill, direction that there should be more oversight and accountability with regard to U.S. dollars now that are being appropriated. Secondly, with regard to the private investment, we did invest $500 million into the European Reconstruction Bank. And so I would suggest looking at the criteria just in terms of private sector investment and just see if there are criteria there for the private sector to begin to access some of the investments that's needed as a result of the war. So it was $500 million put into the European Reconstruction Bank. Thirdly, on genocide, I personally believe that the genocide is taking place, but I agree with the speaker that all of the legal criteria has to be met. I was very involved, as was the speaker, in the declaration of genocide against Darfur in Sudan. The atrocities there, and I visited 4 times, were just atrocious, and it took us forever. But I think we learned a lesson from that we can, once we have the documentation, move forward. And I'm very interested in working on that myself personally because of my experience with Darfur. But it did take a heck of a lot to be able to get that done. But I agree that we need to do that. And finally, just with regard to NATO, I think, and the United States, what this war has shown us that NATO is not only a military alliance, but it's also a political alliance, and it's so important for defending democracy, the rule of law, international law, human rights, that we move forward. And I'm glad to see Sweden and Finland moving forward, because this threat to democracy is real. And I remind my constituents also that the threat and what's taking place in Ukraine is not necessarily disassociated from the threats we face to our democracy here at home. And so we all have to remember that these alliances, the political alliance of NATO, really helps protect democracies, not only in Eastern Europe and Ukraine, but also in the United States and throughout the world. So thank you all again.
I just want you all to know that the Madam Chair is also the Congress's representative to the United Nations General Assembly. So she brings these values and your thinking to that table as well. Mr. Consul General?
So, yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Representative Barbara Lee. So I know that probably not everyone had the chance to ask a question, but we already went beyond the scheduled time. So we really wanted to thank you very much for what you said. To all your knowledge of this situation in Ukraine and your knowledge and how U.S. can help and will help, and everyone is relying on your support. The families, every Ukrainians living here in San Francisco, in Bay Area, basically your constituents, and we are all very grateful for what you do and for what you will do in future to help Ukraine win this war.
Thank you, Consul General. Congresswoman.
Yeah, one thing I failed to mention, and I just want to thank our staffs, and I know the Speaker's staff does a lot of constituent casework. So does my staff, so do I, so does the Speaker. And as we sort through all of the issues around work permits and all the immigration issues, we do a lot of casework. And so I know that we try to be advocates and help weed through some of the bureaucracy and try to be a point person and an advocate for individual cases. And so just know that my office in the East Bay is readily available to help with individual cases, and I know that the Speaker's office is, because we work very closely with both my office and her office on individual cases. So thank you all again, and thank you to the staff.
Thank you, Barbara, and I want to introduce Rebecca. Where's Rebecca? Rebecca, introduce yourself about the availability that you have for those in our district, and Barbara's district is a champion of constituent needs.
Hi, I'm the case coordinator for Speaker Pelosi, and if someone is living within her district and needs help navigating the complex bureaucracy with our immigration systems, they are welcome to contact me, and I'd be happy to help and do whatever I can on our end. Rebecca Roberts. I have plenty of cards that I'll be happy to pass out, but you can definitely contact me at any time. Our phone number is 415-556 4862. 4862. Thank you.
Thank you. The way the Congress works, people are able to advocate for their own constituents, but if you're not in our districts, we can help facilitate getting you in touch with the other. But one of the reasons is they don't want people running for governor on the basis of constituent services. I'm representing you and you and you and you and you. So anyway, that's part of what it is. Thank you all very much for your courage, for being here, for taking the time, but also sharing, honoring us with your presence, sharing your wisdom, informing us in a very specific way about how we can do things better. And Consul General, thank you. I will convey to the, Madam Ambassador, I may see her as soon as tomorrow, but certainly in the next day or so after that, the pride that I know she takes in representing Ukraine in the United States, and the pride that we take in our country of our beautiful Ukrainian American population. In Congress, when you're there, they'll say, I have the most Ukrainians in my district, right? In Ohio, I have the most. In Michigan, I have the most. In Illinois, I have the most. Well, we're very proud of ours here as well. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much. Oh, they moved the tables? Oh, my God. Can't we just go over there or something?